Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished individual from the world of motorsports from Mumbai, India, Mr. Pratik Sonawane. Pratik, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's a great feeling to be here this
Thank you.
afternoon. Yes.
Pratik is the Senior Marketing Manager of the Global Institutes of Sports Business, and he's the Indian National Car Racing Champion for 22-23. So, Pratik, let's start by asking you a simple question, and I'm sure you've been asked this many times. What got you into car racing, and what did it take to become the Indian National Car Racing Champion?
Well, Ashutosh, this journey starts, I think, way the early 90s when Pratik was about 4 years old,
Okay.
watching TV at home, playing with his toys, and he sees a car scene on the TV and he just gets amazed by it. And my mom was sewing something in the house, so I just hopped onto a chair and started driving my imaginary car on a sewing machine. So that's where the love for cars was originated. Uh, Fast forward, coming from a small town, I went to start living in bigger cities, and that's where I got exposed to motorsport and got some idea about what it is. But realistically speaking, I was just swayed by it, knowing that, oh, that's just too big and too glamorous for me to do something about it. But eventually, the passion and the love never actually diluted. And in late 2013, I was actually formally introduced to go-karting. And then in 2014, I started karting recreationally. And 2015 is when I made a decision to start racing professionally and take it up as a well-structured and a well-formal path to move forward with. Growing up as a 90s kid, I always wanted to. So I don't know, but during the 90s and early 2000s, there were a lot of patriotic movies that came out, right? So I grew up watching them, and I was always fascinated to do something for the country, to have the Indian flag on your suit or on your dress. Wanted to join the army at a point of time. So, that entire ecosystem of so many emotions coming up at a young age. And then actually cars and racing actually got my heart. So I wanted to become a national champion since 2015, and that's where my crusade actually began. Little did I know that it's going to be a fantastic journey. So 15, I started racing professionally, and so I race in the Indian National Racing Car Racing Championship, and I have been racing in one make series. So one make series is essentially all race cars on the grid. Say 20 race cars are exactly the same.
Okay.
With power, construction, weight, and everything. The only differentiating factor is the driver. So it's a level playing field, and I believe that's one of the best platforms to showcase your skill and talent. Hence, I've been doing that since 15. And in 18, I hit a very good patch. I started really progressing after like 2 to 3 years of racing. In 19, I almost became the Indian national champion. I actually lost the national title by a couple of points, but it was a fantastic season nevertheless. In the pandemic, we did not race. 2021, I came back into the racing space with a very strong intent of taking the title home in 21. But the universe had different plans. 21, I think I finished at my career's worst position ever. I finished fifth in the national championship, and that was quite a striking experience for me because I was shaken. And then it took a lot of built up to step back into the game and make up the mind, that regardless of the circumstances, I'm going to give it my absolute best, like an innocent, unconditional effort, and then see what transpires, because I loved the process. 2022, I started a full-time job in Mumbai again. Of course, I've been working previously as well, but 2022, I moved into Mumbai, and the job had a lot of responsibilities and a lot of commitments expected from me. But at the same time, my heart was inclined towards going and getting that national title under my belt because I just couldn't stop, And so I made a promise to myself that this year we're going to give a very unconditional effort towards winning the championship with nothing held back. So time doesn't exist. We're going to operate without getting exhausted. We're going to operate with full conviction that we are going for this title. And with systematic and a good disciplined time, I was able to pull it off. In 2023, I won the championship. In fact, I was leading the national championship title table from first race itself all the way to the last.
Amazing.
So that's how it transpired.
Amazing. And tell me, for someone like you who's a sports person, and you just mentioned you are working, how does your typical training day look like? And what do you prioritize in terms of fitness, skill development, and mental preparation?
So as you see, right, I'm in this unique space where I have to juggle two balls at once,
Yeah.
or maybe three balls at once, and it is challenging, no doubt about it. But I think the only way to overcome this challenge is with a very beautiful tool called as discipline and consistency. So I usually my training day starts with early around 6:37 in the morning, where I wake up, I meditate for a brief about 30 minutes, and then I step into my simulator training for a couple of hours. So the first couple hours of simulator training essentially sets the tone for the rest of the day. I always like and I'll always prefer to step into a training session with a plan of action, what I wish to achieve. And then you could say that from 10 to 6 in the evening, 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening, the time is absorbed by my full-time job. Then 6 in the evening, I hop into the training session again for a couple of hours, and I try to, tick off my target list for the day. And this constitutes for about 4 hours of simulator training every day. Out of which 3 hours or 2.5 hours is full drive time, and the rest hour and a half is essentially strategy time and debrief time. Alternate days in the week, I put in workouts in the gym to ensure that my physical fitness is at par with the level of competition expected. I've always firmly believed that fitness is as important as skill and technique when it comes to motorsport.
Right.
I just don't want to be a fast driver. I want to be a fast and the fittest driver. And I want to be a combination of these two elements, which really makes me perform when the time is when it is needed to perform.
Yeah.
So when I'm under pressure, fitness helps me stay composed. My skill set and my simulator training helps me stay focused. So I'm focused and relaxed at the same time with a combination of these two factors. Usually weekends is given to rest and rejuvenate and just disconnect from the training to just build up on the muscle memory, relax the muscles, and then hop back into action Monday onwards. So that's
Very
how
interesting.
it usually looks like.
Fascinating. And car racing, Pratik, is as much about the machine as it is about the person who's driving the machine. How do you ensure, your car has had the competitive edge on the track?
So, this is a very interesting way to look at this discussion point. I think a lot of times motorsport or racing is looked at as a very harsh movement act. Like you have to brake hard, you have to turn hard, like how you see in the movies, right? And everything's very fast paced and harsh. But the reality is it's more like a contemporary dance. It's a beautiful act of balance. There's a lot of technical language I could maybe use to explain this, but I'm just going to keep it simple and crisp. So essentially, you have to be gentle with the car. You have to care for the car, and less mistakes will lead to higher reliability. So, and also that you have to have the awareness to maximize the performance.
Right.
So, as much as the car is responsible for performance, I believe there's always going to be a 51% contribution of the driver to extract that performance out of the car.
Right.
Now, what does the 49% constitute is also quite interesting because you have to understand the adaptability quotient. What are the weather conditions you're racing in, what track you're racing in, what are the competitors you're racing with, which position are you racing, starting the race from? Are you attacking? Are you defending? What is your ultimate goal in that competition? Are you trying to win the championship? Are you trying to be the fastest in that race? Are you trying to win this race? So there are a multitude of factors which come in. And that is, then it brings me to the car setup, right? So setting up the car is equally important. What tire pressures you're running, what suspension settings you're running, how is your engine map running to give you the maximum power to, whether you're getting faster acceleration, a better balance into a corner. There are so many different factors. And in order to utilize all of these different factors to the best of your ability, discipline plays the most important role. So yes, car is important, but it's like any musical instrument. It is nothing without the artist.
Absolutely right. That goes without saying, of course. And do you have any kind of pre-race rituals or habits that help you get into the zone on a race day?
Yeah, I mean, I think race days can be a very high pressure environment,
Yeah.
hands down. See, being a competitor, regardless of the sport, I mean, if you're playing badminton, if you're playing cricket, you're playing chess, or
Absolutely.
whether you're going to go and hop into a car to race, I mean, it's going to be a high pressure
Mm.
environment because uh, there are two sides to this coin,
Mm.
right? First side is the preparation you put in,
Mm.
and the second side of the coin is the outcome of the race or the competition. So
Mm.
it is a high pressure environment. And I firmly believe that self talk and remembering your small wins through your training is
Mm.
very important. Uh, uh, I believe in this saying that there's a rule of one thirds.
Mhm.
Uh, that one third of the time you're supposed to feel very crappy at
Mhm.
your training sessions.
Mm.
Uh, the one third of the time you're going to feel just fine and okay with your training sessions.
Mm.
And there's just going to be that sweet spot, one third of the leftover, where you're going to feel good about your training sessions.
Amazing.
So,
Mm.
as far as you're going through this ecosystem
Mhm.
again and again and again and again, that
Mm.
one third part of feeling very good at your training sessions is just going to keep growing. So,
Mm.
that's why the small talk is important. I
Mm.
think this brings me to also believing and trusting in the process,
Mm.
right? Being an athlete performing at the national level, it is a tricky space to have composure of your mind.
Mm.
Uh, Self doubt can creep in, situations can trigger you. So, not that it's going to be easy all the time, but you have to remember why you're there. You need to revisit your why when times
Mm.
get tough. And when you revisit your why, the more clarity you bring, the easier it gets.
Mm.
So my pre-race rituals are usually to listen to a few songs before a session to get into the zone.
Mm.
I also a set of particular songs that I listen to when I really want to, pump myself up.
Mhm.
Uh, and I do something slightly unconventional. That is, whenever I've had a great training session while my practice is going on, right after the session, I associate that great feeling of a practice session with a few songs,
Amazing.
and I listen to those songs only after I've had like a fantastic practice session. So when
Mm.
I go for my race day and when I know that I need that extra juice of motivation, I replay those songs, and then the muscle memory and the good feeling kicks in.
Wow.
So just a few of those things. And
Mm.
as I said, revisiting your why is important. And with racing, there's this uh, very high demand of having to operate at the limit,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
You're pushing the car to its limit. You're trying to go as fast as you can. You're attacking. You're defending.
Mm.
You're trying to, there are dogfights on the track. I mean, there's so much happening,
Mm.
and I think as much as a laser focus is expected to come out of you, you need to be equally relaxed.
Mm.
Because if you're agitated, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're trying to be aggressive,
Mm.
none of those values operate well when you're trying to do a contemporary dance.
Mm.
So, as much as you have to really perform very well, you have to find a way to stay composed and enjoy it.
Mm. Well said. Great response. Thank you. And Pratik, do you have a favorite racetrack in India or perhaps internationally that you particularly enjoy or feel connected to, and why?
So, in India, of course, the Buddha International Circuit in Greater Noida is my favorite racetrack.
Mm.
In fact, that track has a special place, holds a special place in my memory because that track is where I got my first pole position.
Wow.
That track is where I've set the fastest lap record, which is still unbroken since
Mm.
2018.
Mm.
I got my first career podium there. I got goosebumps on my body because at the podium ceremony, they played the Indian national anthem, and I was like, is this a dream come true?
Nice.
Someone pinch me.
Mm.
But coming back to the track and why I love that track is I think the
Mm.
architecture and the geography of the track is
Mm.
excellent. It's got a fantastic flow to it. Buddha International Circuit is also regarded as one of the top five fastest Formula One tracks. So the average speeds throughout the track are quite higher.
Mhm.
So that's where it becomes quite exciting because as higher the average speeds of a racetrack go, the more precision is expected out of you.
Mm.
Uh, and it is overall quite a challenging track to drive at. And
Mm.
that's what makes me fall in love with
Yes.
it again.
Well said.
Yeah.
And the other perspective I wanted from you was that motorsports has traditionally been seen as male dominated.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your perspective. Do you see this changing?
100% yes.
Mhm.
I think India, I'll talk about the Indian motorsport industry to begin with. I think when it comes to participation and participation from different genders, there's a lot more. There's a spike in female participation in India, and I firmly believe that if not more, but female participants bring equal amount of talent, hard work, and determination to the game. And if not faster, they're as fast as male champions. So it is getting better. Uh, but there are two sides to it, right? Previously, motorsport was considered as a stereotype that it is only for men, but nobody ever asked women to not come and race. So eventually, the narrative is changing. Eventually, there is bigger acceptance, and I think gender equality is going to play a major role moving forward.
Right, right. Well said. A couple of more questions, and I want to move to the Global Institute of Sports and Business.
Yeah.
How do you balance the adrenaline rush of racing, which is, you put on your favorite playlist before you go after a good training session, etc., with the demands of everyday life, which is 9 to 6 in an office, talking to customers, talking to people, relationships, and your own personal commitments?
I mean, from the outset, it's exhausting.
I can imagine.
But I think if we leave my racing thing out of this, daily life, everyday commitments, your personal life, relationships, all of these are such fundamental pillars of who we are and where we gain our sense of achievement, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of belongingness from. But yes, everyday life is challenging. I live by myself in the city of Mumbai. I try to manage my entire personal life along with my family commitments and responsibilities. So it does take a lot of your, time and effort to ensure that all of those functions are running smoothly. But at the same time, with your job, there are a lot of expectations. The organization I work with, I would never want to let them down. Regardless of who I'm working with, I would not want to let them down because I am as equally and as valued member of the team as anybody else is, right? So I don't want a go free ticket just because I'm competing. I would want to be 100% committed to my cause at my job. So that brings in, that aspect brings in a lot of accountability, responsibility, a lot of challenges. Let's not forget. So these things, of course, are quite demanding. But at the same time, you have to realize that you have to manage your personal life along with this. And then there's relationships you got to manage, and then there's family you got to manage. So you need to really embrace the fact that what journey are you on? Yeah. When you can see your goal a year, 2 years, 3, or maybe 5 years down the line, you know which direction you're going in, you know which horizon are you chasing, you will gain the ability to settle for a compromise on one of these departments, right? So sometimes you may or may not get the privilege or have the privilege to go out and party with your friends. I mean, being late 20s, early 30s, I want to go out and meet people. I want to go out and party, but sometimes you don't have the privilege because your why of becoming a national champion is way more influential and is way more gravitating than the short-term desire of going out and partying tonight. So you got to realize that there's going to be a compromise. You got to realize that there's going to be a little bit of a sacrifice involved. But the loved ones will stay. The loved ones will support you. Because that's what makes them the people that really understand you. They realize the worth of your goals in life. And let's be real, if you happen to lose a few friends in the process, a few people in the process, that's the price you pay for living a life like this.
Absolutely. So. Well said. Great response. Thank you.
Yeah.
My last question relating to the car racing. Who have been some of your inspirations? And the second part is more important. What next for Pratik Sonawane? When do we see you in the F1?
Oh, wow. So I think, so I'll take up the inspiration point first. So I've been, of course, initially the inspiration was that I want to become a champion. So I got to figure out a way to understand what it needs to become a champion. And then along this journey is when you start putting an anchor on an individual who you look up to and maybe follow their footsteps.
Mm.
So, in the initial phase of my career, my inspiration was myself and my dream
Mm-hmm.
because I used to see myself there. And as the journey progressed, I started getting inspired by an athlete, seven-time world champion,
Mm.
Mr. Lewis Hamilton, who drives for Mercedes
Yeah.
Benz. So there are so many values that I really admire of Lewis.
Mm.
Consistency, there's just this unshaken belief, and there's this incredible performance that Lewis brings to the table, along with a lot of wisdom. And
Mm.
those virtues is what makes him such an incredible person. Like no
Mm.
matter what happens, he's at such a stature where he has all the attention in the world. He's a big name, he's a celebrity, but yet he's so well connected to his roots, to
Mm.
his why of why he wants to race, and he still revisits it
Mm.
frequently, and that's what brings such originality to the concept of having him as an inspiration. So, becoming a world champion. Oh, wait, I'll start again. The opportunity to drive in Formula One is fantastic. To
Mm.
compete in the top three in Formula One is incredible. But to
Mm.
become a world champion is something out of this world. But to become a
Absolutely.
seven-time world champion and still having the hunger to go out there
Mm.
and perform,
Mm.
man, I love that. Yeah, and that's what I
Absolutely.
want to live for.
Yeah.
Like you just don't want to be the best. You want to be unconditionally, undisputedly
Mm.
the person who loves the process.
Mm.
And I think the results will just fall into place. The results will follow. So Lewis Hamilton is my inspiration.
Amazing. And my second point.
Uh, yeah, coming to what's next for Pratik Sonawane. So after becoming the 2020 to 23 national champion, I have been promoted to race in the India's most elite touring cars racing
Mm-hmm.
category, which is the
Mm.
ITC, the Indian Touring Cars.
Mm.
I'm just waiting for a call from my team to let me know when the car's ready so we can just go racing.
Mhm.
So just waiting for those couple of confirmations, and
Right.
then we'll be back on the racetrack soon.
Amazing. Amazing. So I've got time for maybe one or two questions on the Global Institute of Sports for Business. Would love to keep talking to you about car racing, but given the fact that you spend so much of your time working as well,
Yeah.
for our viewers and listeners, tell me a little bit about what does Global Institute of Sports Business do, and what are its core objectives?
So, first of all, the place I work at, I love it because their
Absolutely.
mission and their values and their vision is something that I very, very strongly associate myself with. So, GISB, or the Global Institute of Sports Business, we are an industry design and industry-led sports management institution. Uh, GISB provides postgraduate programs in sports management, which are, I think, the only one in all of Asia to have this level of pedagogy and delivery style.
Right.
So, the concept of GISB originated from our parent organization, which is India on Track, which is the sports agency in itself.
Mhm.
Having so much access to all the sporting developments in the country, we realized, or our top management realized that we need to have a formal structure of providing sports management education to people in India.
Mhm.
And it needs to be very, very well industry connected because there's nothing like that existing in our educational ecosystem as of right before GISB.
Mhm.
And that's how GISB was conceptualized. So because there was lack of practical training, because there was lack of specialized information about sports management in India, and all the options that were available were abroad. So we could foresee that a lot of students are spending a lot of money to go outside India, study,
Mhm.
learn everything about that country, and then have a lot of restrictions when it comes to visa and work permits. And
Mhm.
then they used to come back to India based on the education they've gained. And then there was a massive disconnect because
Mhm.
they've learned about US or UK and their sporting ecosystem and the industry. And then they used to come
Mhm.
back to India and they used to be like, okay, we don't really understand what's happening in India because it's
Mhm.
different, right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
cultures are different, our ways are different.
Mhm.
So we wanted to bring a rock solid, very capable, uh, strongly industry driven and practical program into
Mhm.
Indian land where
Mhm.
students could become the future sports leaders in
Amazing.
the Indian sports industry.
Mhm. Mhm. Well said. So, Pratik, I have time for one more question. I'm going to come back to you now. Um, and this is for the many, many, many people who will listen to our conversation. A lot of them will probably aspire to be sports people. What, based on your own successes, the fact that you've reached the Indian national champion, and hopefully we'll see much more of you and on the international level as well. What would you say are 3 lessons you would want a lot of our young viewers and listeners to take away from your own journey?
Wow. I mean, I think I'm going to keep it very plain and simple
Absolutely.
because the beauty is not in a very complicated answer. The beauty is in the simplicity of it.
Correct.
I want people to know, whoever's listening to us, our conversation right now, is that no matter what you choose to achieve in life, whether it's you want to climb the Everest, whether it's wanting to become a CEO of a company, or whether it's wanting to become a national champion, just remember, it is possible to do it. And the way to do it and the way to accomplish it is by being disciplined and by being committed. A lot of us misunderstand the meaning of hard work. Hard work is nothing else but staying disciplined.
Correct.
So stay disciplined, be consistent, and do not, I repeat, do not take your eyes off the prize.
And on that note, Pratik, thank you so much for speaking to me. I think your 3 lessons were amazing. Whatever you choose, it can be done. Which you said, be disciplined, be committed, be consistent, and keep your eye on the prize. I also loved what you told me about the 1/3 rule of training and how important that 1/3 is when you're feeling high after your training. And you also told me during our conversation that there are times when you would want to go out, but you can't go out because training is important. Next day is more important. And those are sacrifices I think you have made, and I'm sure you'll continue to make. Thank you, Pratik, for speaking to me about your own amazing journey from a 4-year-old sitting on his little chair with an imaginary steering wheel to now being India's national car racing champion. Thank you for talking to me about so many different aspects of car racing. I learned many, many new things from you today. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. This was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.